comes to dealing with a layoff, right, sometimes it's hard to predict. And in this case, I want to help you learn from this example when you're being set up for a layoff. When you start dealing with difficult co-workers, management, dropping little signals and little hints that you're going to be fired or potentially be fired. These are little things to look out for, and we're going to learn from this example of how you can pick up on those signals and avoid that type of scenario, or at least plan ahead if you think you're going to be laid off.
Two of us, man. My first issue came when me and my manager, we would be talking and things like that. And I thought she trusted me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't do anything for her not to trust me or anything like that. Somehow she told Crystal, like, oh, I don't think Corey is happy in his role, this and that. Can you talk to him and see? So Crystal told me, she was like, yeah, like, such and such said that she feel like you're not happy on the team and you don't want to be here. And I was like, what? I ain't even doing that. I'm still trying to learn the role. I don't know what's going on. So that was the first thing. I was like, that's weird. I never experienced like I went to another person directly about me without coming to me. And I remember Crystal saying, yeah, she said she feel like she can't gauge you, or she can't really not even understand. I think the word she used, like, can't read you, or she can't gauge you. And I was like, what? Why she just didn't ask me or come to me in one of our one-on-ones and say, hey, I did like. So the second thing that happened
So the first point here is when you're dealing with managers, and particularly co-workers, they're meant to be in management. And one thing I realized about management, many of them are like passive aggressive weak men, or sometimes they're kind of women who are afraid of confrontation. Now, my thing is, many people in these leadership positions, if you're in a leadership position, you should be comfortable with confrontation. You should be comfortable with providing feedback quite directly without being scared, because that's kind of part of your role as a manager. You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to hide behind my job role. Or what I've seen managers do, and what he's described here, is where they don't want to give you feedback directly, so they'll tell someone else to tell you because they don't want a confrontation with you. They don't want to speak with you directly in a kind of way where they're providing some critical feedback. So what you got to do now with these kind of passive aggressive weak men in positions of leadership like that he's dealt with, or some women who are kind of scared of dealing with confrontation, which is required if you're going to be a leader, and we have to put all these people in positions of leadership apparently. You have to be able to read in between the lines. If they say one thing, are they implying another? If someone goes and tells someone else something and then they make a passive aggressive joke to you, who did that come from? What did that mean? You've got to read in between the lines of things, right? And if someone goes to someone else to give you if your manager goes to your coworker to give you critical feedback about you because they know your coworker's your friend and they don't want to tell you directly, it really, firstly, it shows poor leadership, but it also puts you in a position where you kind of have to really rethink things like, oh, okay, your manager's not saying things directly. Do they have a problem with you? Do they kind of want to get rid of you? And if in this particular case, this is something to look out for. If you're doing a good job and people say you don't seem enthusiastic about the job, that's like a major red flag to a manager. They don't just want you to work hard. They want you to play this super character. Oh, I really enjoy this work. Yeah, I really want to do this. Yeah, can you send me the email? I want to do some more work. They want you to act like you're this super enthusiastic person, when the truth is most people work to earn money. They work to earn a salary to live their life, however that is, whether it's to pursue their life goals outside of work, or to have a family and they're working hard for their kids or their wife and things like that. This idea that you've got to be super enthusiastic about work is ridiculous, but it's kind of important. So I'd encourage you, even if you have to play up a character that is a bit exhausting, what's good for your job security to avoid a layoff is to play up a super enthusiastic character about every piece of work you have, even if you couldn't care less about it.
On this team was one of the recruiters that I was assigned to as far as like being a coordinator for. She started treating me like I was just a little go boy. That's it. Like, I remember, I'll never forget this. And I was pissed. I was working maybe late. It was like 6:00. I was working late, working on scheduling some interviews. And she emailed me and she was like, hey, can you get this pizza order out for me? And in the email, she had every detail, where the pizza needed to go, what the actual pizzas was, how many pizzas, what the toppings were. She was actually on campus recruitment and needed these pizzas to come. Mind you, I'm doing work. So I saw the email. I was like, what? The amount of time that it just could have took her to pick up the phone and order those pizzas, she went and made the email to send to me so I could then order these pizzas for her. It was the weirdest thing ever. So then I was like, this is so weird, between my manager and then her. It was just wild to me because I never experienced anything like that.
Now, this guy is working at Deloitte. Now, Deloitte, he didn't say that, but I've watched the video and that's what he mentions. Deloitte is one of the big four accountancy firms or consulting firms there. You have Deloitte, Ernst Young, KPMG, PwC. Those are the big companies. So he's worked at Deloitte in this case, right? He's working in recruitment. And what you got to understand is you need to pick up on all these signals of passive-aggressive co-workers, right? People who try to use you. And in this case, the co-worker is trying to use him to order pizzas for like some kind of corporate event. Now, you got to really think carefully about who's delegating work to you. I'm careful where I don't mind helping a co-worker a little bit, but I'm not going to be their lapdog. There are places where, certain people at the same level as me would ask me to print things for them. And it's like they can use the printer themselves. I'm not going to go to the printer and print something for them ahead of a meeting. And people like to show they're one step ahead of you to senior management by delegating work to you. Like you're beneath them. This is quite a common thing you'd see with these type of people who tend to do well in corporate environments, being passive aggressive like that and being dominant in a passive aggressive way. So that's something to look out for. Don't overextend yourself and be overly helpful to people. You can be friendly with people, you can help them a bit, but don't be overly friendly. And also sense when it's time to leave. If you're dealing with these situations where people are treating you like a joke, order these pizzas, things like that, even if they say it in a professional way, you got to be able to kind of read between the lines, like, okay, if they're valuing me in a very low way, then maybe it's time for me to leave, or they're setting me up for a layoff because they don't really value me or see me as a valuable team player if they're going to ask me to do these kind of simple tasks. And eventually he does end up leaving, right, this company because he doesn't want to deal with this. And he moves on to Accenture, which is like a major consulting firm in the finance industry, and they deal with other industries too. So let's listen to his experience there. And again, passive aggressive employees are a red flag. And that's kind of a sign. If you start dealing with really difficult personalities at work, you should consider that. Are they setting you up for a layoff? Do you need to go and work somewhere else? Things like that.
So I told my manager, I was like, look, I'm going to be using PTO. And I didn't have to tell her what I'll be using PTO for. I had the days. I said, I'm going to take a week off using my PTO on this particular week. I said, you know, she's my manager. I'm going to tell you what's going on. I said, I'm taking a week off of PTO because, I got selected for the YouTube Next Up program and they're flying out maybe 10 creators out to LA to do X, Y, and Z. So I'm excited about this. So I'm gonna use my PTO so I can do that. She's like, all right, cool. You'll have somebody cover for you.
Now, before we continue, he made a major mistake there. Now, never overshare any details about your personal life with people at work. Now, why should you never do that? Because people at work are very insecure. Right? Particularly if you're in a more junior role than them. If you're more junior than them and you've achieved more than them in your life, even if it's a small thing, they can get jealous. If someone's an unmarried middle-aged person and you're getting married, they might feel jealous and passive aggressive that you found a happy, healthy relationship and they haven't. If you do anything that's kind of good, because there's a crabs in the bucket, there's a very much like pulling people down mentality. Especially now in the West, I would say, with many people struggling financially, they don't want to see you do too well. So always play down your success. Don't mention anything too much going positive for you outside of work because they could, resent you for it, right? Because they're passive aggressive. So don't overshare. Don't share your personal life. Don't mention other income sources. That can make people jealous in the corporate hierarchy because they see you as beneath them. Then what they might do is they want you to be lower than them in the social hierarchy and social status, and they start gossiping. And that's what he ends up experiencing here, which we're going to cover here. This passive-aggressive manager starts gossiping. Oh, he doesn't seem too invested in the job. He's too busy with this YouTube thing he's doing on the side, right? This is how people set you up to fail. Not because you're doing any less quality work than them. People get jealous. They get petty. Always come across as inoffensive, humble, not kind of showing yourself as better than anyone else. Because people will just start gossiping and gang up on you in a very passive-aggressive way and go to the manager and act like you're not good at doing your job. And this is what this manager did. She got jealous of him and started setting him up to fail. And we're going to cover that in the next part of his story.
Did that, come back. I'm hopping on like team calls and stuff like that to help other teams and stuff like that. And this one girl's like, oh, yeah, I heard, I think somebody said your manager said that you don't want to be here. I was like, don't want to be here? What you mean don't want to be here? She's like, she told somebody you're not serious about your role. You don't want to be here. You just want to do content creation, yada. And I was like, I ain't never said none of that. So everybody on that team think anytime I get deployed to their team to help them out, I ain't going to do no work and I don't want to be there. So she done started this rumor that I don't want to be there and I'm not doing no work and people are starting to perceive me that way.
So this one little statement to his manager of something going well for his life outside of work, his YouTube channel in this case. And he's going to this YouTube event that was helping, like workshop, like a little kind of training program, which, if someone told me that, I would kind of be happy for them. I'd be like, okay, they're doing something good in their life that is outside of this. Like I had a coworker who was going to leave the bank that I was working at, and he was going to become a franchise owner of a CrossFit gyms, because that was a different role he wanted to do, a different source of income. And I was kind of happy for him. I was like, oh, that's cool. He's stepping outside the finance industry, taking a bit of a chance on running a gym, which is kind of interesting. But some other people get jealous and set him up to fail. And what you see here is the office environment now is not about work. It's similar to the high school environment. It's all about playground gossip, who's popular, who's in the out circle, who can we talk down on, who can we gossip on. That's why you need to protect yourself, play down your personal life, because it will be used against you by unhappy co-workers, right? Of course, don't mention politics, religion, any sensitive topics. There's so many, everything's a sensitive topic now. Anyone can be cancelled or offended by things. Not too much about your personal life. Don't mention other income sources. Keep all of that low key. What you're doing on the weekend, spending some time with friends and family. Don't go into the details. You have any strong opinions? Now, everything's offensive to anyone. You can't be a man or a woman in some cases with a strong opinion that isn't woke agenda type of thing. And then they kind of want you to be a slave to one income source, which is your employer. So your manager wants you to be like a devoted slave to them and not pursue other goals outside of work. They want you below them in the social hierarchy, so you can't be doing better than them in any sense in financially or otherwise. They also want your social status and your social acumen to be completely, your social capital to be completely rotating around your job title and your company. That's why they want you to socialize with co-workers so much, because they don't want you to have an identity outside of work. Because these are the type of like psychopaths that kind of succeed in the corporate environment. Their whole life is their co-workers are their best friends, and they invite their co-workers to their weddings and things like that. That's what they expect you to do. And I don't want to bring gender too much into it, because I do focus on gender and sometimes in our videos. When you have these kind of mixed gender environments, if you have all men in one environment, it has a certain dynamic. You might have more banter, more kind of aggressive jokes about each other in the sense of just getting to know each other. Between women, you could have more maybe jealousy and petty behavior and things like that. And, you have these all types of weird social dynamics. And I think particularly when you're dealing with, in some cases, female co-workers, they might be more in tune to gossiping about you, right? And when you're dealing with male co-workers, because they're maybe more aware of their social status, they might feel if you're better than them in certain ways, they get insecure and start feeling bad and try to talk you down. And I remember working at one of the major investment banks. I worked at Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and so on. If you're new to the channel, don't know who I am, that's a quick overview. I remember working at one investment bank on the trading floor, and I had a co-worker who wasn't particularly physically active and things like that. But they would get jealous if you would ask me, oh, how much are you lifting on your deadlift or squats or bench press? And at the time I was lifting a lot of weights, so I was lifting relatively heavy weights. And he would get jealous of it and be like, just like make passive aggressive statements about it, because he was jealous, because he had to, I don't know, this is what it is in the workplace. People just find anything to pick up on to create a social hierarchy around it and pretend they're better than you in one way or the other, that they have better taste in art or culture, or they watch foreign movies or whatever, and then you're less cultured than them. This is the type of ridiculousness you have to deal with in a corporate environment, particularly from these very insecure people in positions of power. And this is what I mean. Everything is narrative driven, the same way the news is, the same way everything is now. It's not about truth and falsehood. It's not about what's reality and what's fiction. Everything is about manufacturing narratives, and they can manufacture a perception around you, like they did for this employee, that he's just not invested in his job, to set him up for a layoff, which is where this scenario leads him to. So from making one, you'll see in the next clip here, from making one statement to his manager that he's working on something else outside of work to generate an income, she got jealous, she spread a rumor he doesn't care about his job, and she got him fired.
Done working and I have some time. She had a conversation with me and she was like, I feel like I don't know what you're doing or where you're at. I was like, you have access to my calendar. In our one-on-ones, I tell you where I'm going to be at, what events I'm hosting. You hop in on our AUC calls sometimes and you're there. I don't know what else you want me to tell you. I'm giving you the visibility. She decided to tell her manager that I wasn't doing no work and that I wasn't serious about my role and things like that. And this is when they started to try to create a plan to get me up out of there. We get to the point to where she's like, okay, from now on, I need you to send me every Friday at 3 p.m. I need you to send me an email recapping everything you've done for the week. I was like, I can do that. So I did that. I think she thought I wouldn't do it.
So this is what they do. They end up putting him on a plan to kind of track his performance, right? So what they end up doing is setting him up to fail, basically. Track everything you're working. I want to keep on top of that. They want to build up the narrative that you're not really doing much, that you're not invested in your job. And they'll make up these BS reasons. And when they ask you to start tracking things carefully, which you should do if your manager asks you to, they're looking for any small reason, any small thing to pick up on to build a narrative of not only are you not invested in the job, now you're making mistakes at work and you're not good at your job. When they start digging, get ready to leave. When they start digging for any reason to pick a small flaw, a small chink in your armor, that means that they want to get rid of you. Essentially, they're manufacturing a reason to get rid of you. When they start hyper tracking all of your work.
She done wrote up a PIP plan. If y'all know a PIP plan, that is a plan for you to improve. And if you don't improve, you get fired. I'm on the call with her and her manager. And she telling me this, and I just feel like this, and da 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 da. It's a lot of I feel like, but it's no I knows or any demonstrations or you missing this. I feel like this, and I feel like that, and I feel like you're this, and I feel like she told me she feel like I don't talk to the team. When I talk to everybody on the team on an individual basis, during team calls, I'm not saying too much because everybody got their own stuff to say. Unless I really need to say it, I'll say it. I'll kiki here and there, but I don't have much to input. Granted, I'm still new anyway. I'm about 2.5 years in at this point. I'm still learning as I go. I'm not trying to be the subject matter expert just yet. I'm still doing my thing. And she's saying, well, yeah, I feel like you need to be more outgoing and this and that. I was like, I was so confused. I was so confused at why I was being put on a performance improvement plan because like I said, I had some of the highest numbers on the team. It was crazy. So then I knew they was trying to get me up out of there.
Right, so what have we got here? We have got an instance whereby the PIP, the performance improvement plan, is setting you up to fail, right? If a company puts you on a PIP plan, that means they've going to track your performance closely for 6 months. They're going to manufacture a definite narrative that their company's going to protect themselves legally and drop you in it and say you're not good at doing the job, right? And what you'll notice here is a common pattern. They can't really say on paper that you've done anything wrong. They say, the manager will feel a particular way. Again, don't want to make it about gender, but you're dealing with a female manager, they'll say, I feel a particular way. You don't seem invested in this. They should be able to document real cases where maybe you didn't invest in doing the job properly before they get rid of you. Because everything's now about the workplace environment. It's become about emotions and not logic, right? Everything's about, feelings, not facts, right? There's the phrase by Ben Shapiro, facts, not feelings. But this is all about feelings and not facts. And they can't really write you up. And you'll see this as a common theme. And something I've dealt with too, they'll come up with these type of narratives. They'll say, you don't seem to be socializing with the co-workers too much. You don't seem to be a team player. And it's like, well, if I'm working with someone, I will talk with them. I don't tend to talk about non-work topics just with co-workers for the sake of talking to them. But they can manufacture that as a reason. You're not a team player. Why? Because you're not joking around and socializing with people enough. And that's what he dealt with here. They just started manufacturing BS narratives to say that he's not good at the job. Now, and this is something I'd also raise to you. If you're on team meetings, even if you don't have much to say, just drop in a few sentences, right? Because they want you to maintain your visibility. If you're just a quiet person who gets on with your job, they'll again say that you don't seem too invested in the work. Just come up in the meeting, and even if you're repeating something someone else said and say, I really agree with that because that means that and this is that. That's just showing you're invested and you weren't just sitting there silently in the meeting daydreaming about quitting your job or something like that, right? So it's important to kind of say something, even if it's kind of pointless to you, because in the corporate world, visibility matters much more than anything else. And I particularly think socializing with co-workers can be a bit of a waste of time, but this is something I have dealt with at other companies where they try to manufacture that as a performance issue. So just reach out to your co-workers and chat with them a bit, because that's what they want you to do, even though it has nothing to do with your performance. They'll say it's a communication issue. That's how they'll label it, a performance issue. You're not chatting much with co-workers about their personal lives. It's a communication issue. You don't say much, right? And that's how they try to set you up. And we're going to look at one quick screenshot here. So the screenshot we can see here is the PIP, the performance improvement plan that he was landed with, that they gave to him, right? They said, okay, well, we need to see your performance improve. And they have these kind of vague definitions trying to catch him out in any way possible. The purpose of this document is to highlight your deficiencies. You have to sign this if you have got a PIP that you have to sit through, and you have to agree that you have a performance issue even if you don't think you do. And then they talk about personal style. A lot of these things are just vague corporate terms. They just want to fire you. They can't really define what you've done wrong, right? Asking questions when tasks are unclear. I'm sure he would do that without the performance plan. Ask questions, right? You ask questions if you need to. You don't deliberately ask them for the sake of it, right? And that's what they want you to do in the corporate environment. They want you to talk for the sake of talking. Ask issue, have meaningful discussions. Well, I'm sure people talk about the work when they need to talk about the work. You don't have to say there's a performance issue, right? Slow down to read emails thoroughly. How are you measuring to what extent the speed of people reading an email? This is how ridiculous a PIP is. And if you're putting a performance improvement plan, a PIP like this, you should just look to find another job. I'll just stop putting in effort at the job. I don't know how, it says here it's a 30-day action plan. I'm surprised it's 30 days because typically it's 3 to 6 months. And that's in that 3 to 6 months, I would just start putting in less effort in the job and start looking for another job because they're already setting you up to fail. So that's what you should bear in mind. Communicate with leadership when workload is too large or too small. And then the last part, actively engage in team calls. So a lot of these things, asking questions, reading emails, engaging in team calls, firstly, it's a bit ridiculous, but a lot of it is just increasing your visibility. So that's why if you are, as I say, in any corporate role, try and make sure they can see you quite often and see you as a visible team member. Being a quiet co-worker, I don't know, it can work against you. Because like I say, the work environment is not about a quiet co-worker who works hard. It's about the person who wants to be a popular kid. You should approach the corporate environment if you don't want to get laid off is your high school and you want to be a popular kid. So figure out the social dynamics. And just to show you how vindictive these managers can be, in this case, he received his PIP, his performance improvement plan, as you can see from the writing on the screen right now, the day after his birthday, which means she knew it was coming. This idea that managers don't know something's coming and then they find out last minute is a complete lie, whether it's a layoff, a PIP, or anything else. So they presented this to him a day after of his birthday, right? This is how vindictive people are, and bear in mind we've gone through his journey of being laid off here. And in two cases, he was talking about Deloitte, then he was talking about Accenture and things like that, where he was kind of pushed out. What is the common theme here? You're dealing with gossiping co-workers. You're dealing with passive-aggressive people, jealous people, insecure people. Not, oh, he did this performance issue wrong. Based on what he's saying, right? I don't know the ins and outs. He's not a helpful team worker, things like that. He's not socializing enough. He's not chatting on meetings enough. If he should be talking more on meetings. I mean, like, that's what I'm trying to explain to you here through my experience of working at these companies like Goldman's, Morgan Stanley, and so on. Through this guy's experience working at Deloitte and Accenture, these are top brand companies, right? You'd think they'd be hyper productive, focused on hyper smart people, things like that. That's not actually what it is. It's about this social dynamic and dealing with passive aggressive, insecure, jealous coworkers. You will continue dealing with like very difficult work environments until you find something that clicks with you, where you can kind of be yourself. For me, for example, I've tended to work better in some environments where I can work from home because it's a bit more of a quiet environment and I can kind of be in control of what's going on around me. It's not some busy office environment. In his case, he could at Google be at friendly co-workers who are maybe from a similar background, similar age group and demographic. And the thing is, being yourself is very important in your job. And I don't mean being yourself as in you could go to work and say whatever you want. Just being relaxed at work. If you can't be yourself and being fake in corporate America, it really is draining, right? There's only so much you can be fake. There's only so much hours and energy you can dedicate to being fake. And after a few years, it's going to get exhausting, and you're going to notice that on your expression on your face is going to come across kind of unhappy, right? Being fake in corporate environments is exhausting. And sometimes, a lot of the times, what bothers you about the job is not the work itself, because you could probably do the work quite easily after a few years of doing any job. You can pretty much do any type of work that's similar to what your experience is. What is draining, what is exhausting is being fake in corporate, right? The corporate faking type of activity. The fakeness is draining, and that's when you really need to think carefully about your career. And you need to find a job that allows you to bring your unique character to the role, right? And you can't be too rigid. And this is something he found working well for himself when he was in Google compared to Deloitte and Accenture. And as part of my career coaching, what I try to do is, through analyzing your skills, your experience, is finding some solution that works for you. Because rather than, deal with being one of these employees who is depressed their whole life, working 40, 50 years for a job they don't like just to earn a salary or high salary, you should find something that works for you so you can actually live a meaningful life, and maybe it's more well balanced, even if it's stepping out of the industry you're in. He moved from, as I say, those finance companies, finance consulting, Deloitte, Accenture, to Google. Now that is a major shift in career, right? From finance to tech. So these are the type of considerations you should make, particularly in this difficult job market. And something I can help with as a career coach is help talk you through those type of scenarios. So thanks for listening. Leave a comment below and let me know, have you dealt with these type of instances where they're setting you up to fail in corporate America, setting you up for a layoff because you have jealous co-workers and managers. I think it's something many of us have dealt with, so it'd be good to see your experience in the comments. Thanks for listening. There are 2 recommended videos on your screen right now, and I'll see you in the next video.